Good evening. Welcome to Politically Incorrect. Once again, we're of course going to be talking about the tragedy that befell our nation a week ago and how our nation can heal itself moving forward again. Let me first introduce the panel. To my right here is a very good friend, Alfre Woodard, the brilliant actress. As I said about Arianna Huffington last night, it's times like these that make you want to be around your friends, especially when they are wise, and she is, of course, both wise and my friend. To your right is Mr. Don Bustanty. We have not met, but when this happened, I said to the people at this show, I said, we have to book people of Arab-American descent because we have to hear that point of view. If we don't start to understand each other, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So I thank you for joining us, sir. And this, of course, is David Horowitz, who is well known to policymakers and editorial readers. He is also the president of the Center for the Study of Popular Culture. Now, a couple of things. I meant to do this last night, and as we do on the show, we got to talking, and I forgot. But last week, I was home, as many of us were. Didn't go to work, for good reason. But I thought, you know what? I feel bad. So many people are suffering, and I'm not going to work, and I'm getting paid. So I said, you know what? I'm going to give last week's salary to somebody. And I'm trying to figure out who it was, and I saw this in the paper yesterday. The New York Times has a 911 neediest fund to collect contributions for financial relief to rescue workers and civilians or their families. And what I like about it, the Times will cover all administrative costs. So if you got paid last week and you didn't go to work and you can afford it, like some of us can, give it up. That's what I would say. That's okay. I say that as an example and a suggestion. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I received a lot of messages today about the show we did last night, most of them positive, but to those who say that there was insufficient grieving, I understand. I hear you. I just have never been good at grieving in public. But I was as devastated as anyone was, and I feel it. But I also feel a responsibility for this show to be what it has always been, a place where people can come and express their ideas openly in a way they can't in many other places. They say that truth is the first casualty of war. If that's true, this show may be in trouble. But I hope not. As I say, I do hear people, to those who say we should pause, I hear you. I know what you mean. We need to bind our wounds, but I think we can be respectful to the fallen while still moving forward. And I think we have to because we, the survivors, have a responsibility to do nothing less than ensure that our civilization continues and moves forward. That is a terrible burden, but we have it, and we have to deal with it, and unfortunately, the clock is ticking. So that's all I have to say about that. Now, on that subject of moving forward, we have apparently a war on our hands. We hear a lot of rhetoric about war, about draining the swamp and smoking him out of his hole, and things that I know make people feel good. My question is, I don't know how we win this war. We can't do nothing, and yet it seems like there really is nothing out there that we can do that would be effective. What do we do? How is this war won? Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, well, first, I want to thank you for holding this seat vacant.
I'm sorry, and I meant
Barbara Olson.
I forgot to mention
okay,
that we're doing this all week for Barbara Olson, who was supposed to be a guest on our show. The Tuesday it happened, she was flying out here, and I said, no, that seat is going to stay empty for the whole week in honor of her. Thank you.
And then I want to support your decision to resume the show. The president said we have to get back to work. America has to get back to work. We have to show that we're not intimidated by these people and that all of that American self-confidence is back. The first way that we need to win this war is to take our defenses much more seriously than we have in the last decade. Wait. It's very important. No, it's very important. I know it's important. I noticed, for example, that there's a TV show now honoring the men and women in the CIA who defend each and every one of us every day. We have the CIA has been the butt of attacks now for decades. The FBI, the military. We need, as a nation, to understand that the great fun we have and the great, and the truths that come out on shows like this have to be protected. It's not like the world is saying, "Great America, do your thing." They're envious, and a lot of people are just very hateful. So I think it really begins at home with our respect for those firemen and the police, all those people who are putting themselves on the line for us.
Well, of course.
Yeah, speaking of the CIA, Bill, 2 days ago, I heard former director Woolsey, I forget his first name. James Woolsey, and Israel's dean of the peace camp there, Uri Avneri, both used the metaphor of the mosquitoes and the swamp and clearing it up. But Woolsey's tack was, we've got to go to that swamp and exterminate them. Avneri's tack was, we've got to go to the swamp and change the conditions that permit the generation of new mosquitoes.
The United States cannot...
Well, how does that make Arab Americans feel because the swamp that they're talking about, draining, okay, this is an arc of land that covers about half the earth with about 1 billion people, okay? A lot of people in the Arab world are sympathetic to the terrorists. They may not think they may be sympathetic that we lost lives, but from what I hear and what I read, they say, well, now America knows what we've been going through for a long time. And it's about time they learned that. This war didn't start on September 11th. We've been at war for a long time, and now you know what it feels like.
America did not attack Afghanistan. These people are a minority in the Arab world. They are at war with these governments. Why do you think the government of Pakistan wants to support us, or the Saudi Arabians? Because Osama bin Laden wants to overthrow those governments and establish a religious fanaticism. These are religious radicals.
How much more religious fanaticism could there be in the government of Afghanistan? It's the Taliban.
Well, but there's an opposition. They assassinated the opposition leader right before they did this because they knew that this guy had, had the information and would attack them.
Okay,
but there's a war going on within the Arab world, and most of the Arab world, the people will be on our side.
Well, it's a very quiet war that's going on within the Arab world.
That's because they all live in police states and they're terrified.
I agree.
David, those people are not religious leaders. They are political leaders with an agenda. They're a minority.
Exactly.
Well, and it was a big mistake. I'm sorry. I am sorry.
Look, they exploit
Osama bin Laden has issued a fatwa on every single American. Every American is to die under his fatwa for not being a follower of his religious faith.
Reverend Falwell and Reverend Robertson have issued fatwas against the homosexual community, too. I mean, they're praising us everywhere.
I have absolutely no place for Jerry Falwell. Every time he opens his mouth, he sticks his foot in it. But to compare any American religious leader, Jerry Falwell, anybody else, to these people who with the Koran in hand, send airplanes into buildings to kill thousands of innocent people I'm speechless over that one.
What we do about this war that is being called our new war, in answer to the attacks that happened in New York and in D.C. last week. One of the positive things that I see happening, because I must say, while I have been grieving, I've also been thinking of how to keep going, and I've been thinking of how to not be terrorized, which is a very important effort, I wouldn't even call it a war, that we have to mount ourselves in this country to regroup as who we are, and at the same time there will be military operations that will be mounted, and that's a whole nother discussion at different levels.
Well, that's actually the discussion I was asking about.
Well,
I don't blame any of you for avoiding it completely, which you did.
Well,
because there is no good answer, but that actually was what I was asking.
Well,
how are we going
to begin to talk about that?
Well, I'm going to have to take a break first, and then you can.
As details of this unthinkable tragedy continue to unfold, ABC News is there with up-to-the-minute developments 24 hours a day, broadcast to broadcast, and continuous coverage on abcnews.com. And tomorrow, America Fights Back, a special edition of 2020 with Barbara Walters at 10, 9 Central.
All right, we want to return to the subject what we were talking about, which is we've declared war. Now what do we do about that? What would feel good?
Bill, may I please do a quick disclaimer first? For anything that I may have said earlier or may say in the rest of the show should not be interpreted as any kind of justification for what happened last Tuesday.
We understand that. You're here on Politically Incorrect, and as I said, this is here to speak so we can really hear what's in people's minds, because I think there's a lot of editing going on. Some of it justified, but we really need to hear it, and that's why I want you here. And no one ever thought that you supported that. But I was just going to say that this question I'm asking about the war that I want you to answer now, because in the LA Times today, Pat Buchanan, who is about as far on the right as you can get, and Robert Scheer, who's about as far on the left, basically said the same thing. Mr. Scheer said, "Sorry to break the news to the flag-waving kids on the overpasses and to the news, the media and politicians leading them on, but the measures required to totally eliminate terrorism would turn the world into a police state."
That's ridiculous.
And Pat Buchanan said very similar things. He said, "We don't want to turn into a war of civilizations with the United States almost alone."
It's not going to happen. What
Why?
we're going to do, because one of the really smart things that Bush has done is he re-put together the leadership that led us in the Gulf War. We already have a coalition. We will get Pakistan to demand from the Taliban that they release him. If they don't, we're going to go in and we're going to get him. We're going to issue an ultimatum to Syria.
He's Spartacus. 1,000 will rise in his place.
No, that's completely wrong.
No, that's wrong?
How many?
He's all alone.
There's a difference between, we're not going to exterminate, we're not going to eradicate every terrorist, but we can prevent them from doing what they did to the World Trade Center. We can go to Syria.
By going into Afghanistan.
We will go to, well, we got to get rid of Osama bin Laden. Must die.
How?
He must kill him, just the way we should have killed Saddam Hussein.
Right.
But wait. We will go to Syria, and we will say you have 10 terrorist organizations operating on your territory. You will close them down, or we will topple your regime.
So we're going to topple all the Arab regimes, all the way from Rabat in Morocco to Islamabad.
No, there are not that many.
You and George Bush want to go in like John Wayne.
Iraq, Iran,
that's not
Syria.
That's a lot of people to be at war against at the same time.
You don't fight them all together all at once.
Yeah, we're poised right now on the brink of something historic as a world. Unprecedented terror was visited upon humanity, in particular this country, and specifically those families and people who were in those towers and in the Pentagon. Well, change has been thrust upon us. There's nothing we can do about it except we can shape the change. We have a chance now to start to move into a direction that as a world we start to police ourselves together. Now, more than ever before,
what do we do?
Wait just a second, I'm going to say, more than ever before, Bill.
But it's a short show. You have to get to it now.
Wait a minute, just a second.
Tell me what it is.
All these people around the world, even our foes, were aghast at this tactic.
Right,
so people have said, what can we do? Now is the time. You have more nations than ever before willing and ready, because they understand their vulnerability, also saying, let's go in. Let's identify terrorists. We all like to have wars, but this is something new. So right now, we can garner that energy, stop saber rattling so much, and go in with all those people, including the Arab states who have said they are willing to help and to specifically target people and go for them. You just can't have drive-by bombing.
The difference now between what Bush is going to do and what the Clinton administration didn't do is when they go to somebody like Arafat, who is part of his coalition as Hamas, which was behind the first World Trade Center bombing, they say, close down the violence or you are history. It's a different way of talking to these regimes. Syria, close down the camps or we are going to take down your regime.
These regimes, I might add, that you talk about, these Arab regimes that have pledged to us.
I'm talking about the Arab countries.
They speak in English in one way, and they speak in Arabic something totally different. Arafat for years has in English spoken the words we want to hear. When he speaks in Arabic to his people, it's a lot about destroying Israel. So they speak in two different languages with two different messages.
But you know what has happened right now?
I have to take a break, but I would like you to address that point when we come back. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm sorry, you were about to say, and please address what I was saying about Arafat speaking one thing in English and saying something quite different in Arabic.
Okay, your observation there is correct. But Yasser Arafat is not a wonderful leader.
No.
But the Palestinian people are a wonderful people. I know them.
I agree.
And many people know them. They're reacting to having had their land taken from them by foreigners from another continent.
That's not true.
No, it wasn't the Arabs who went to where the Jews were living.
There was never a Palestinian state.
Oh, we're not talking
this
about,
idea that
Bill,
they had a homeland.
No, we're not talking about a state. We're talking about a society that has lived on that land for centuries and centuries.
Not true.
Not true.
Not true.
Of course it's true.
It's not true.
No.
It is true.
I'd like to talk.
Palestinians have lived on that land for hundreds.
The Palestinian exhibit at the 1939 World's Fair was Zionist. It was not Arab.
Let's stay on the subject tonight. I wanted him to speak.
Yeah, there were Jewish Palestinians for centuries, along with the Muslim and Christian Palestinians. They were all Palestinians.
Right.
Their first language was Arabic. And then the Zionist movement arose 100 years ago, and European Zionists went to Palestine, succeeded in taking the land from the Palestinians. Then 34 years ago...
We're not going to resolve this tonight. Jordan...
No, we're not going to resolve it.
The majority of the people of Jordan are Palestinians, and they never...
What does that have to do with the fact, David, that people lived on that land?
Used to belong to Jordan before it attacked Israel.
No, it doesn't matter if it was an independent state. What matters is you had people there, and they were pushed out by foreigners from Europe.
I don't want to argue.
That's a fact.
This is
not my fact.
Look,
that's
I don't want to argue the Israeli-Arab dispute. We now have America at war with these terrorists throughout the world.
You can't declare war on people, on individuals. You got to have a state.
And
when we declare war on a state, then we can say we're at war. Right now, we have a horrific crime against humanity that we hope other states will join in trying to solve.
No. This is a war that has been declared by forces that are supported by Iraq and Iran.
No, I'm talking about the war that we see on our TV.
We are not going to win this war unless...
We're not talking about a war declared in Iraq.
We need to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to defend ourselves, or we will have anthrax, chemical weapons in this country. This is very serious. This is not about crimes that people commit.
Bill,
and I would like to use 1 minute here to say something about our president. That George Bush, one thing that you know about him is because you saw throughout the campaign when he said he wanted to restore dignity and honor to the White House, he understood that the president is the commander-in-chief and that all our lives depend on his decisions. And I am very proud right now of the man who is in the White House for taking that post so seriously for all of us. That's what I want.
Okay, just a second. Do you want to speak for a minute?
Yeah, Bill, do you want to hear this? You asked for a solution, Bill. You want to hear my suggestion for a solution to our problem here with the terrorism? There are two phases. One, pursue the killers. Pursue them without hurting innocent people. Now, that pursuit can take a long time, and let that continue as a part of the project. The other part is review our foreign policy and change the capitalistic conditions that we pursue against the knowledge and the will of the American people in propping up dictators to create stable conditions for our big business to flourish.
I don't know if
the American people.
I mean, I don't know.
Have I heard this right? Is this a plea for socialism?
I don't know that we propped up Arab dictators. I don't think we propped up Saddam Hussein. The problem is that we didn't knock him down. We tried.
Well, you know what? Something else. Let's make sure that that doesn't get piggybacked onto this thing that we're doing now.
Why?
We just have
it
to
is
stay
related.
Alert. Well, you know what? One of the things that
I have to take a break. I'm so
goodness.
sorry. Okay, you mentioned President Bush. Ever since this happened, I have thought of Shakespeare's Henry V, Prince Hal, a youth spent wantonly and then becomes a great king when war transforms him. I have high hopes that could happen to him. As he said to Falstaff, presume I am not the thing that I was. So we are rooting for him. We have to, and we want to. Thank you. Good night.